What is up, everyone? STONEPOST 34 here, bringing you more of growing up with STONEPOST. Now, this is not a super old story from when I was little. This is actually a story of how I started my own company and how I took a really, I wouldn't say really bad situation, but a not appealing situation and turned it into a good situation. And that's the situation I have now. So to let you know, I'm going to give you a little background information on my career path. So out of college, I went to work for a company, nationally traded company, that did real estate management, commercial real estate management. I worked for them for about 2.5 years, and towards the end, I got transferred to Indiana. Realized I didn't really like Indiana. You'd think Kansas and Indiana are really similar. Guess what? They're not. And I missed all my friends and my family, so I decided to move back. So I moved back to Kansas. At that point, I didn't have a job, so I decided to get my real estate license. I had worked with several brokers and real estate brokers, and I thought, you know what? These guys are not very good at what they do, and they still do pretty well. I think I can do better, and I did. So I didn't really do a lot of commercial. I did a few deals in commercial real estate, but I primarily focused on residential. So I didn't light the world on fire, but I made a living at it. And I don't know if you guys are, maybe your parents are real estate agents, maybe you're a real estate agent. I don't know. It's not as glamorous as you think. It's odd hours, weekends. You're basically a slave to your phone. That phone rings, you got to go. When someone calls, you got to show them something. So what happened is, in 2003, we had our first child. And actually, I take that back, 2002. But she was just, getting to that point where, kids are a lot of fun to have and be around with. So I told my wife, I said, I physically would get sick when my phone rang because I did not want to answer it. I did not want to work, which is horrible. So I think if you ever get to that point in a job, it might be time to look for something else. And I did. And I knew a guy in the community that had a real estate consulting firm. And I just, on a whim, I picked up the phone. And we kind of knew each other mutually through a couple friends, but this is not someone that I would say I ever spoke more than, 5 times in my life. And I called him up and I said, hey, I don't know if you're looking to hire anybody, but, I've got plenty of real estate knowledge, 5 years of selling real estate and 2.5 years of management out of college doing commercial management. And he said, yes, actually I am. Man, things work out great. He said, a guy that works for me, his wife just got a big job in Nebraska, and so I'm looking for someone to take over. So guess what? I interviewed with him. I started basically the next week. And so I worked for him. He was a good guy to work for, probably one of the smartest people I've ever worked for. But I think with people, when they're super uber smart, they're not as balanced, and he was not as balanced. He was not socially balanced. He was a good guy, great father, but hard to work for. And I learned a lot, but I got to tell you, working for this guy, for example, we went on a vacation, and we're out of the country. I had a report I'd put together, had a few minor changes. I get an email from him asking me to make these changes when I'm out of the country. I have to log in remotely on my big family vacation, and just little things like that, where he could have gone over to my computer, made the changes for me, and it would have taken him 5 minutes. Instead, I sat on this horrible connection in the Atlantic Ocean trying to get on my computer remotely and make these changes that he could have done. But he was that way. Anytime I'd go somewhere, whether I left early for work, he'd be like, did you get everything done? I'm like, well, it's not due till next week, so I'm not really worried about it. Or I tried to play golf, which I didn't play a lot back then because I couldn't because of him. So here's what happened. So we were pretty successful. I was very successful. I made him a lot of money. And I approached him and I said, have you ever thought of having a partner buy in? I'd be really interested. And he said, that's a great idea, because that's kind of how this business works, is to push it along in perpetuity, you have to find someone that, someone younger, and I'm younger, or was younger then. And, he's in his almost 60s now, 55, somewhere in there. So he made an offer to me, and it wasn't super attractive, but, it was an offer. So I felt like, yeah, let's talk about that. So we met on and off for about 6 months, I was getting all my state requirements done, got all those done, and so we went to lunch. It was me and another guy because he was offering him the same thing. He said, you know, because we're all basically commissioned, he said, I'll reset your commission schedule. I'll pay you in arrears for the entire year, and this was August. He said, I'll pay for all your classes. I'm like, because they're expensive, and you know, we'll do this, and then I'm going to give you 5% up front and then 1% a year, but I was going to have to pay for it, which was okay. I wasn't too upset about it. But anyway, that's not the point of the story. The details, the devil's in the details, I guess. But so what happens the next day? The next frickin' day, I get an email from him. He had, you know, like I said, he promised me all this stuff, and he said he'd pay for classes. I get an email from him the next day that says, hey, I'm glad we went to lunch the other day and had a chance to talk, but all that stuff we talked about, you know, I think I promised you too much, and I'm not going to pay for your classes. I'm not going to increase your commission split. All this stuff. I mean, he backtracked 100% on everything that he had offered me. And to this day, you know, it still upsets me because I remember coming home and telling my wife, I'm like, this is it. I found what I want to do. You know, I'm so excited. You know, I basically planned the next 25 years of my life working for this guy. And he rips the carpet out from under me. So guess what I did? I continued to work for him. I had basically about 1.5 more years of classes and experience that I needed to get done so I could basically go out on my own. And I don't know that I'm being vindictive, but I still have that email to this day where he came in and had promised everything and then basically pulled the rug out from under me. And that was my motivation. I never said another word to him about it. We never talked about ownership. I never pursued it again, and literally started planning my own business that day that he sent that email. You know, I went on the state website, reserved my corporation name. I did all that right after this started. I reserved my website. I had that reserved. And so basically worked for him for 1.5 years, got my designation, and then he was actually headed out of town to work on a property, and I called him into my office. I said, hey, I need to talk to you because I'm leaving. And he looked at me like I was crazy. He's like, what? Greg, if you leave, that's the worst decision you've ever made. And I thought, you know, at that point, I'm like, no, you made the worst decision when you, 1.5 years ago, did what you did to me. And, you know, I don't want to be super vindictive, but because of that bad situation, I turned it on its head, and I made a great situation out of it. I went out on my own. It was a little scary at first. I got to tell you, I covered all my bases. I talked to all my people that I'd be working for and make sure that they were willing to offer me work, and they all were. And it's just the best thing that's ever happened to me. So I went out on my own, and, you know, I've been out on my own for quite a while now, and I've got a guy that works for me. We do well. I enjoy what I do. And best of all, I don't have to worry about him telling me when I can play golf and getting in my business. So anyway, guys, that's my story about how I started my own business. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're going through something like that, shoot me an email. Maybe I can help you out, give you some advice. But hey, really appreciate you guys watching. Take care as always. This is StonePost 34.